Hey guys, please, buckle up for an epic, no-holds-barred plunge into the raw, chaotic, and downright unforgiving world of the Roman Empire. This isn't the glamorous life of senators lounging in marble villas or emperors basking in golden laurel crowns. Nah, tonight you're just you, plopped unceremoniously into a sweaty, sandal-clad existence where survival means dodging sewage, sidestepping state-sponsored crucifixions, and praying your apartment doesn't collapse under the weight of your neighbour's bad cooking. So, before we dive into this gritty saga, take a second to smash that like button if you're vibing with the chaos, hit subscribe if you're ready to roll with us, and drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is. Love seeing who's joining this wild ride from across the globe. Now, dim the lights, crank up a fan for that soft background hum, maybe grab a drink to sip through the madness, and let's step into the heart of ancient Rome together, where every day's a battle and every night's a gamble. You wake to the jarring cacophony of squawking chickens, a baby wailing like it's auditioning for a tragedy, and the distant clatter of carts rattling over cobblestones. Congrats. You've just opened your eyes in a Roman insula, the ancient world's answer to a sketchy tenement building. Picture a multi-story death trap, held together by crumbling mortar, whispered prayers, and the kind of optimism that only comes from not knowing better. You're likely stuck on the third or fourth floor. Bad news, because the higher you go, the poorer the tenant, and the more likely your ceiling's caving in when someone upstairs spills their olive oil or trips over their own ego. Your room's a claustrophobic box, no bigger than a modern walk-in closet, with damp stone walls that sweat in the summer heat and freeze your bones in winter. There's no window, just a fist-sized hole in the wall, letting in a mix of choking smoke, stale air, and the occasional pigeon that's way too comfortable making eye contact. Your mattress is a lumpy sack of straw crawling with lice, your blanket reeks of damp wool and regret, and your furniture, non-existent. Cooking strictly forbidden. Fire codes haven't been invented, but everyone knows one stray spark could turn the whole block into a Roman barbecue. Your worldly possessions amount to a chipped clay cup, a threadbare tunic that's seen better days, and, if you're feeling particularly fancy, a wooden comb with half its teeth missing. Oh, and your toilet? A cracked chamber pot squatting in the corner, silently judging your life choices. Every morning, you'll haul it down a set of narrow, rickety stairs to empty it into the street's open gutter, praying you don't slip and add your dignity to the morning's offerings. The walls are so thin you can hear your neighbour praying to Jupiter, coughing up last night's wine, arguing with their spouse, or, worse, not arguing, if you catch my drift. The air's a thick stew of smoke, mildew, and the unmistakable aroma of unwashed humanity. Downstairs, someone's baking bread, but you're not on the guest list. Outside, street vendors are already hollering about overpriced figs and questionable fish guts. A centurion's barking orders at some poor soul who's probably already regretting their life, and you're sweating, itchy, and possibly inhaling lead dust from the city's charmingly toxic plumbing. Welcome to the Roman grind. You're not an emperor, not a gladiator, just a regular pleb trying not to trip over a stray goat or anger a city god before you've even had breakfast. You make it down the death trap stairs without breaking your neck. Nice one. Now your bladder's screaming, and your insula doesn't have a bathroom. No sink, no flush, not even a bucket with a shred of dignity. It's just you and your chamber pot, shuffling through the crowded streets, one hand clutching the pot, the other clinging to what's left of your modesty. Your destination. The latrina, Rome's public restroom, though calling it a restroom is like calling a gladiator fight a friendly spar. It's a long stone bench with holes carved into it, perched over a shallow trough where water trickles just enough to carry away the collective shame of Rome's lower classes. You squeeze in between strangers, some chatting about grain prices, others staring into the void, or worse, at you. Privacy, not a thing. Doors, dream on. This is a social hub where businessmen squat and haggle, a retired soldier grumbles about his sciatica, and you're just trying not to make eye contact with the guy across from you who's chewing olives like he's auditioning for a villain role. Then comes the real kicker, the tussorium, a communal sponge on a stick sitting in a bucket of vinegar or salt water. In theory, you rinse it before use. In practice, it's seen things, unspeakable things. You wipe hesitantly, praying the vinegar's doing its job, or maybe you brought your own rag if you're clever, or some moss if you're feeling rich. Public urination in an alley? Don't even try. Laws exist, fines are steep, and Roman cops aren't known for gentle warnings. Once you're done, you wash your hands in a communal basin that's had more fingers than a gladiator's fan club. No soap, no running water, just a quick rinse and a growing sense of existential dread. You leave the latrina lighter, but spiritually broken, ready to face breakfast, or whatever sad excuse for a meal awaits. Breakfast in Rome isn't a cosy affair, it's a grim necessity. Forget coffee, not invented, eggs, bacon, or your oat milk latte dreams. You're stuck with panis rusticus, a dense gritty loaf of bread baked yesterday, or last week, that's so tough it could double as a club. Pair it with watered down wine, because drinking straight booze before sunrise is a senator's privilege, not yours. You're eating this standing in the street or squatting by a fountain, chewing what feels like flavoured gravel while side-eyeing your neighbour's slightly less stale loaf. If you're lucky, you've got a smear of garum, that fermented fish sauce that smells like a shipwreck's armpit and tastes like regret with a salty finish. Fruit? Honey? That's for the elite. You're just a pleb, rich enough to avoid slavery, but poor enough to fantasize about a jug of goat milk. Sometimes a vendor strolls by, hawking hot chickpea fritters or honeyed pastries, and for a fleeting moment, hope sparks, until you pat your coin pouch and realize it's emptier than a gladiator's sympathy. So you choke down your bread, sip your questionable wine, and brace for the workday, powered by carbs, mild dehydration, and a creeping sense that today's already out to get you. The Roman workday is no chill office gig. Unless you're a senator, a poet with a rich patron, or some lucky jerk who inherited a vineyard from a childless uncle, you're working and it's brutal. You might be a labourer hauling bricks, a potter shaping clay, a porter lugging goods, or, worst of all, a sewer cleaner wading through Rome's literal underbelly. The empire needs roads, aqueducts, temples, and baths, and you're the one building them, barefoot in sandals that offer less support than a drunk friend's promises. Work starts at dawn, and if you're late, your pay's cut, you're whipped, or you're fired, which in Rome means starving with a side of honour. Your tools are basic: a splintery shovel, a basket for bricks, and sheer desperation. No gloves, no helmets, just sweat, dust, and the constant threat of a falling stone ending your career and your spine. If you're a craftsman, you're competing with 100 others peddling the same clay pots, tunics, or sandals, and quality doesn't matter if a rich patrician decides your face annoys him. Even cushy jobs like messenger, accountant, or teacher suck. You're either dodging carts while delivering scrolls, crunching numbers for someone who forgets your name, or trying to teach Latin to senators' kids who think they're gods. Women? They're spinning wool, selling vegetables, running market stalls, raising kids, and praying childbirth doesn't kill them, all while dodging the same workplace hazards as men. Multitasking before it was cool. You might get a lunch break if your foreman's in a good mood or too busy impressing a visiting official. Work or die, that's the Roman deal. The city's eternal, but your back's got a ticking clock. The streets of Rome are a sensory assault, a chaotic gauntlet designed by someone who clearly despised personal space and public health. Picture a swarm of rats, stray dogs, barefoot kids, and vendors shouting in 6 languages about their overpriced figs or dubious eels. Thieves blend into the crowd, eyeing your last coin like hawks. Roman roads are engineering marvels, perfectly straight, masterfully paved, but they're also open sewers, slick with urine, spilled wine, vomit, and the ever-present garum runoff. Step off the raised footpath without looking, and your sandals baptized in a cocktail of human misery. Carts rumble by with no speed limits, no crosswalks, just pure chaos. Daytime bans on heavy carts mean drivers go full chariot racer at night, barreling through dark streets like they're auditioning for a Roman Fast and Furious. The air's a choking mix of cooking smoke, temple incense, and the pungent waft of nearby latrines. Dead animals? Someone might toss a rag over a rotting dog and keep walking. Then there's the random chaos, spontaneous brawls, impromptu protests, or a senator's parade clogging the street with off-key trumpets and self-important fanfare. One wrong step, and you're slipping on a fig, getting flattened by a runaway cart, or accidentally offending a patrician's pet monkey, which is apparently a capital offence. The Roman street's alive, and it's out to get you. Thirsty? Rome's aqueducts are the stuff of legend, channeling fresh water from distant hills into the city's heart. But unless you're rich enough for a private fountain in your courtyard, you're fighting through sweaty crowds at public spouts where people fill jars, wash their feet, and occasionally dunk a screaming kid for hygiene or spite. Want to bathe? Hit the Thermae, Rome's public baths, where everyone's naked, loud, and sharing the same tepid water. No soap, no chlorine, just a bacterial stew with a faint eucalyptus vibe. The lead pipes delivering that water, slowly poisoning you with fun side effects like anemia, gout, or a touch of madness. Water's so risky that everyone, men, women, kids, drinks diluted wine all day, because at least the alcohol might kill something. Aqueducts are a flex, but for you, every sip's a gamble, every bath a dip in someone else's filth. Pain's your constant sidekick in Rome. Stub your toe, no ice, no painkillers, just grit your teeth and limp on. Break a bone? Wrap it in a dirty rag and pray it sets right. Get a splinter? Congrats. That's how infections start. There's no anesthesia. Surgery means screaming into a wooden block while a guy named Marcus, who learned his trade from a scroll and a bad example, saws into you. Dental work? Imagine a blacksmith with a hammer and a grudge. That's your dentist. If you're poor or enslaved, no one cares. You could bleed out in the street, and the best you'll get is a passerby muttering, "Don't stain the mosaic." Even the elite lean into pain. Stoicism's the philosophy du jour. Cry over a broken arm? You're not just hurt, you're weak. Real Romans suffer in silence, then write brooding poetry about it by lamplight. Pain's not just a possibility, it's the soundtrack of your life. Need a doctor? Good luck surviving the cure. Roman medicine's a chaotic blend of Greek theories, mystical vibes, and a whole lot of leaves. Feeling sick? They'll blame your humours, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile, and decide you need draining. Cue the leeches or a knife to fix everything from headaches to heartbreak. Surgery's done wide awake, with wine or vinegar as the only antiseptic, which burns like divine wrath. Your doctor might also be your barber, and their prescriptions range from honey and garlic to crushed beetles or, yep, animal dung mixed with herbs. If that fails, you're sent to sleep in a temple, praying to Asclepius for a divine PowerPoint on how to not die. Infections are standard, and if you kick the bucket, your doctor shrugs, your family lights a candle, and your neighbours whisper about what kind of omen your death might be. Romans care about health, but they're still figuring out what doesn't murder you faster than the disease. Dinner or cena is no 5-star experience. No pizza, no pasta, tomatoes, potatoes and coffee haven't been discovered. You're stuck with pulse, a porridge of spelt, beans or lentils that tastes like wet gravel, maybe jazzed up with a pinch of herbs if you're lucky. Protein's a rare treat. Meat's expensive and often half spoiled, preserved with heavy salt or garum, that fermented fish sauce that smells like a fish's worst nightmare and lingers in your soul. You might get boiled veggies, a chunk of hard cheese, or, if you're living large, a single fig. The rich feast on roasted flamingo, stuffed dormice, or jellyfish in vinegar, dishes that scream, "I'm rich and my taste buds are unemployed." Your wine's always watered down, drinking it straight is for barbarians or senators. The water it's mixed with? Probably contaminated, so you're just picking your poison. Dessert? Maybe dried fruit or nuts, or you're fasting because it's a festival day for a god who frowns on gluttony. No napkins. You wipe your hands on a communal cloth that's seen more action than a gladiator's sword, or just use your tunic and pretend it's fine. Your stomach's full, but your breath smells like garlic, wine, and mild despair, and you're already dreading the Roman night. Nightlife in Rome isn't a chill bar crawl, it's a blood-soaked spectacle. The Colosseum's the main event, where you're packed in with sweaty strangers watching gladiators lose limbs, wild animals devour criminals, or the emperor stage a full-on naval battle with real drowning for extra flair. It's free, but only because the state wants you too distracted to notice taxes spiking or a new province being annexed. Feeling artsy? The amphitheatre offers Latin tragedies you barely understand, or crude comedies where the punchline's someone defiling Jupiter with a sausage. Subtlety's not Rome's thing. For sports fans, the Circus Maximus delivers chariot races, fast, thrilling, and regularly fatal. No guardrails, no helmets, just crashes and crowds betting their last coins. Cheer for the wrong team, and you're fighting your way home. Street entertainment's a mix of fire breathers, acrobats, con artists, and barefoot philosophers ranting about life. If you don't like the show, wait 5 minutes. Someone else will start yelling. Rome's a dazzling, violent circus, weaponizing spectacle to make you forget how brutal your day was. If that doesn't numb you, there's always more wine. Justice in Rome? Don't expect fairness. If you're a citizen, you've got rights. No public flogging unless you really annoy someone important, and maybe a trial. Non-citizens? Expect a fist, a branding iron, or a quick execution outside the city gates. Slaves? Their property. If one kills their master, the whole household might be slaughtered to send a message. Trials are pure theatre. The richer side brings bribes, witnesses, and dramatic gestures. You bring your tunic and a sinking feeling. Cry on cue, and you might get sympathy. Otherwise, pray the magistrate isn't hungover. Punishments are brutal. Thieves get branded or hands broken, liars might lose a tongue, and insulting the emperor means a creative death, like crucifixion, which isn't just for rebels, but anyone the state wants to make an example of. The vigiles, Rome's combo cops and firefighters, are underpaid, overworked, and often bribable. Get mugged? They might shrug. Bribe them, and they'll help you mug someone else. Laws are carved in stone, but they serve power, not you. You're just trying to avoid a fine for spitting in the wrong alley. Religion's not a choice, it's a full-time job. There's a god for everything. Door hinges, cardia, sewers, cloacina, mildew, robigus. Skip a shrine, forget a candle, and your roof's collapsing, or so the neighbours say. Festivals clog the calendar with bull sacrifices, and streets thick with roasting meat and incense. Emperor worship's mandatory. Offer incense at his altar, sing his praises, and never roll your eyes during his parade, or you're labelled impious or suspicious, which is basically a death sentence. Foreign cults? Keep them on the down low unless they're state approved. It's not about faith, it's about nailing the rituals, smiling through the goat sacrifice, and not pissing off Jupiter, who's apparently got a vendetta against slacking. Social climbing's a blood sport in Rome. At the top are senators with purple striped togas and land bigger than some provinces, followed by equestrians, the wealthy business class. Then there's you, a pleb, scraping by with the freedmen, slaves, and that guy who accidentally insulted a statue of Augustus. To climb, you need a patron, a mix of boss, godfather, and landlord who tosses you crumbs in exchange for loyalty. Every morning, you join the salutatio, lining up at their villa to praise their haircut, carry their litter, or beg for a coin. One wrong word, one stained tunic, and you're done. Your clothes, speech, and friends are judged like you're on a reality show with knives. Gossip's a weapon, marriage is a chess move, and ambition gets you a dagger in the back, socially or literally. Climb carefully or stay low and hope no one notices you. Nighttime's no refuge, no streetlights, just moonlight and blind hope to navigate Rome's labyrinthine alleys. Thieves, muggers, and drunk ex-gladiators prowl the shadows, and the vigiles are more likely to nap than save you. Fire's the real nightmare. Your wooden insula's a tinderbox, and one tipped lamp could torch the block. The Great Fire of 64 CE didn't start itself, and there's no evacuation plan, just you sprinting down collapsing stairs with your tunic and maybe your chamber pot. Noise never stops. Drunken parties, religious processions with drums, or screams of passion, murder, or both. Sleep's a luxury, safety's for the rich, and you're just praying to Mercury for a quiet hour that never comes. You've survived one day, mad respect. You dodged public toilets, lead pipes, gladiator gore, and the soul-crushing stench of garum. But could you do it again? Honestly, you'd be begging for Wi-Fi, a hot shower, and a bottle of hand sanitizer by noon. Most of us, with our air conditioning and 5-minute delivery apps, would crumble before the second helping of gravelly bread. Yet the Romans did this for centuries, building aqueducts, temples, and concrete that outlasts our strip malls. They crafted laws, philosophies, and languages that echo in our courts, books, and words today. Their architecture inspired cathedrals and capitals. Their republic and vetoes shaped modern democracies. Rome wasn't built on gold. It was forged in sweat, fear, ambition, and sheer stubborn survival, layer by layer, century by bloody century. You don't need to live it, just respect it. Those filthy streets birthed an empire, and you're just grateful for indoor plumbing and a world where a sponge on a stick isn't your only hygiene option. Rhodogoon, Parthia's dust-crowned warrior. Hey guys, please let's shift gears to a woman who didn't just wear crowns, she wore the dust of battle like a royal flex. Rhodogoon, a Parthian princess in the 2nd century BCE, wasn't raised for silk gowns and palace feasts. Born into the gritty, high-stakes world of the Parthian Empire, she grew up surrounded by rebellion, envoys bickering over loyalty, and scribes scrambling to track who was stabbing who in the back that week. Her father, Mithridates II, transformed Parthia from a dusty fringe kingdom into a powerhouse that could trade punches with Rome itself. Rhodogoon didn't just learn courtly manners, she mastered statecraft, military strategy, and how to rock armour that didn't clash with her fierce vibe. Parthian women weren't sidelined. They ran cities, brokered dynastic marriages, and sometimes, like Rhodogoon, became legends by smashing their enemies into submission. When a rebellion flared up in the western provinces, likely Media or Babylonia, it wasn't just a few tax-dodging peasants. These were bold aristocrats and city leaders, cocky enough to seize fortresses, silence Parthian envoys, and tell the crown to kick rocks. Normally the king would send a general or some overzealous cousin to handle it, but Rhodogoon wasn't here for delegation. For reasons lost to history, maybe timing, maybe defiance, she strapped on her armour, hopped on a horse, and took command herself. And then she dropped a vow that was pure drama. She wouldn't wash or comb her hair until every last rebel was crushed. This wasn't about vanity, it was a public middle finger to the traitors, a visible promise that she'd tie her dignity to the Empire's victory. Every tangled strand would scream, "We're not done till I say so." Her soldiers didn't see a princess, they saw a commander who meant business, and they rallied behind her like she was the second coming of Mars. This campaign was no weekend skirmish. It was a grueling, months-long slog through Parthia's sprawling provinces. Rhodogoon led with classic Parthian flair, lightning-fast cavalry charges, feigned retreats to lure enemies into traps, and hit-and-run raids that left rebels scrambling. Her hair, once a royal asset, turned into a matted, dust-caked war banner, a symbol of her refusal to back down. The rebels started calling her the Witch Queen, not because she cast spells, but because no noblewoman should be this fierce, this unwashed, this relentless in the field. To her troops she was a goddess of grit, to her enemies a nightmare on horseback. She didn't just fight, she outsmarted, outlasted, and outwilled her opponents. When she reached the rebels' final stronghold, a fortified city bristling with archers and smug confidence, she didn't charge in recklessly. She played the long game, cutting off trade routes, poisoning wells, and starving them out until their morale cracked like dry clay. Under cover of darkness, her scouts found an unguarded gate, maybe sabotage, maybe exhaustion, and her forces slipped in, opening the city from within. By dawn, Rhodogoon stood atop the battlements, streaked with sweat and ash, her hair a wild mane of victory, the rebellion broken at her feet. Then came the moment that sealed her legend. In a public courtyard, no golden palace in sight, she summoned her servants and her soldiers to witness. Basins of water were brought, oils warmed, combs retrieved like sacred artifacts. Under the open sky, Rhodogoon, caked in the grime of war, began to wash her hair. Every knot undone was a city reclaimed, every rinse a defiance washed into the earth. Some say she laughed as the water flowed, others swear she wept, but her troops, hardened men scarred by battle, stood silent, awestruck by the woman who'd bled beside them. No crown was placed on her head, she didn't need one. Her legend was her diadem, forged in dust and discipline. Rhodogoon could have ridden back to the capital in a blaze of glory, but she took the long road, visiting each reclaimed city to check defences, hear complaints, and pay for supplies from her own war chest. She wasn't just a conqueror, she was accountability in human form, showing rebels and loyalists alike that Parthia's strength wasn't just its armies, but its unbreakable will. Back at court she was a problem, too popular, too respected, too powerful. Ministers whispered about marrying her off to tame her. Others wanted her commanding border defences forever. Kings, maybe her father, maybe her brother, trod carefully. Rhodogoon didn't grab for power. She let her silence do the talking, her presence forcing decisions without a word. History tried to erase her, as scribes favoured kings and their tidy chronicles. But in Parthia's dust, she's eternal. Mothers told her story to daughters as a warning to men who underestimate women with a mission. Soldiers passed her tactics like sacred texts. Rhodogoon didn't need statues. She was the vow that won, the grit that outshone gold, a legend woven into the Empire's bones. To Myris, the steppes avenging storm. Hey guys, please, let's meet Myris, the massage-tay queen who didn't just defy Cyrus the Great, she buried him. Born on the untamed Central Asian steppe, Tomyris grew up in a world of wind, horses, and raw survival. The massage-tay were nomads, sun worshippers who rode like spirits, shot arrows like thunderbolts, and buried their dead with swords for the afterlife. No cities, no temples, just pride and precision. Girls weren't caged. They trained alongside boys, riding and fighting with iron in their veins. Tomyris learned to shoot before she spoke in full sentences, to lead before she loved. When her husband died, she didn't wait for a coronation. She seized command, daring anyone to challenge a woman who could outride and outfight them all. Cyrus the Great, founder of the Achaemenid Empire, had already conquered Lydia and Babylon, his banners flying over half the known world. To him, the massage-tay were a prize. Control their steppe, and he'd locked down the northeast frontier's trade routes. He tried diplomacy first, sending envoys with a marriage proposal. Tomyris saw it for what it was, a slick move to absorb her people without a fight. She shut it down, no hesitation. Cyrus, ego bruised, crossed the Araxes River with his army, building a bridge of boats to invade her land. Tomyris sent a warning: turn back or regret it. He didn't listen. She played him like a master strategist. Instead of meeting his army head-on, she lured them deep into her territory, where the steppe's vastness was her ally. She left a camp stocked with food and wine, a trap for Persians unused to such luxuries. Cyrus took the bait, leaving a chunk of his army, led by General Harpagus, to feast. That night, Tomyris's warriors struck, slaughtering the drunken Persians in a bloodbath. Among the dead was her son, Spargapizes, a massage-tay commander. Some say he died fighting, others claim he was captured and took his own life. Either way, when the news reached Tomyris, her grief turned volcanic, her rage legendary. She sent Cyrus a new message: "You glutton for blood, I'll give you your fill." This wasn't a threat, it was a vow. The final battle was an execution. Tomyris led her cavalry in a storm of arrows and axes, her warriors painted with ash and fury, fighting like they had nothing left to lose. Cyrus, expecting a scattered tribal rabble, faced an organized, relentless force. Tomyris didn't just command from the rear, she fought in the thick of it, her presence igniting her troops like wildfire. The Persian lines shattered, soldiers fled into the grasslands only to be hunted down, and Cyrus, the man who'd conquered empires, fell, dead on her terms. Legend says Tomyris found his body, severed his head, and plunged it into a wineskin filled with human blood, snarling, "Drink your fill." Was it true? Maybe, maybe not. Was it iconic? Hell yes. The news sent shockwaves through the ancient world. Cyrus, the unstoppable king, killed by a woman from the steppe? Persia tried to bury the story, but the steppe sang her name. Tomyris didn't build an empire, she didn't need to. She defended her people's freedom and rode back into the horizon. No records of her later years survive. She vanished like a storm passing over the plains. But her legacy lives in Central Asian folklore, medieval manuscripts, Renaissance paintings, and modern Kazakh statues. She's a mother avenger, a wild queen, a symbol of defiance who proved that empires fall when they underestimate a woman with vengeance in her heart. Tomyris didn't rule forever. She ruled unforgettable. Ancient beekeeping, sacred buzz, sweet legacy. Hey guys, please, let's wrap this epic journey with something sweeter, but no less badass. Ancient beekeeping, where humans and bees forged a sacred, sticky partnership that shaped civilization. In Egypt, by 2400 BCE, beekeeping was a state-sponsored art with divine cred. Beekeepers used horizontal clay tube hives, stacked like terracotta pipes, and moved them along the Nile to chase blooming flowers as floodwaters receded, a kind of ancient GPS for nectar. Honey wasn't just food, it was medicine, used in over 500 remedies for wounds, infections, and stomach issues, thanks to its natural antibacterial magic. It was also a sacred offering tied to Ra, the sun god, whose tears, myth said, became bees. Honey-sweetened temple offerings preserved bodies in mummification and even served as currency. Beeswax sealed tombs, made cosmetics, and formed writing tablets for scribes. Beekeepers, with no protective suits, relied on smoke, timing, and raw courage to harvest combs, making their craft as much a ritual as a science. In Mesopotamia, beekeeping was less about worship and more about order. By the Sumerian period, bee gardens, or apiaries, dotted temple grounds and royal estates, producing honey and wax for rituals, medicine, and trade. The Code of Hammurabi, 1754 BCE, laid down laws for bee disputes. Steal honey, pay a fine. Let your bees swarm someone's field, you're liable. Hives, likely mud brick or woven baskets, were kept in shaded gardens to dodge the brutal heat. Honey-sweetened offerings, wax-sealed documents, and magical figurines, tying bees to both bureaucracy and mysticism. To Mesopotamians, the hive was a microcosm of their society, structured, regulated, and buzzing with purpose. The Hittites in Anatolia took it to a spiritual level. Bees weren't just insects, they were sacred agents of purity, used in rituals to carry away sins or divine wrath. Texts from the 14th century BCE describe ceremonies where a bee was released to cleanse a community, a rare act of mercy in ancient rites. Honey-anointed altars, mixed with wine or milk for offerings, and hives, likely clay or straw, were managed by priests near temples. Hittites tracked swarm patterns and blooming seasons, showing a deep connection to the land's rhythms. To them, the hive's hum was a sacred frequency, linking gods, kings, and the earth itself. The Greeks turned beekeeping into a philosophical flex. They saw the hive as a model for the ideal city-state, disciplined, cooperative, divine. Aristotle studied bees obsessively in his Historia Animalium, noting their roles, though he mistook the queen for a king. Greeks pioneered terracotta hives with removable lids, allowing sustainable harvests without wrecking the colony. Clay smokers and bellows puffed calming smoke, reducing stings and preserving hives. Honey-sweetened wine preserved fruits and healed wounds, while bees were tied to Artemis and Demeter, their priestesses called Melissae, bees. The hive was a scientific marvel and a spiritual symbol, proof that even tiny creatures moved with cosmic purpose. Romans took it to empire scale. From Gaul's vineyards to Hispania's hills, they ran honey farms with enslaved labour, tracked in ledgers like any crop. Writers like Varro and Columella penned beekeeping manuals detailing swarm cycles, pest control, and herb smoke for flavour. Think thyme or oregano, adding a subtle kick to the honey. Hives varied: hollow logs in cold regions, woven baskets or clay tubes in warmer ones. Honey went into wine, mulsum, sauces, and battlefield wound dressings, while beeswax made candles, waterproofed ships, and filled dental cavities. Bees were Rome's tiny workers, their hives a mirror of the empire's relentless efficiency. Across these worlds, bees were more than insects. They were sacred, medicinal, economic powerhouses. Honey healed wounds, preserved bodies, and sweetened offerings. Wax built tools, sealed spells, and lit temples. Ancient beekeepers were innovators, crafting hives, mastering smoke, and tracking blooms in a way that echoes modern migratory beekeeping. Their respect for bees' cycles fostered a harmony between humans and nature, while honey's role in medicine shaped early pharmacology. From Egypt's Ra to Rome's ledgers, bees were divine messengers, their hives symbols of order and resilience. Today, their legacy lives in our crops, our art, our stories, proof that even the smallest wings can leave a mark that lasts millennia. So next time you drizzle honey on your toast, raise a glass to the ancients. They turned a buzz into a legacy that still hums.